Africa, arise and take your place. We have prided ourselves on being the most resilient in the most trying of times, to trials and tribulations. We have risen as a nation and as a people. So too, now. The kingdoms are in stand in 2020, a start of a new time, a new era, a new reality, a new purpose, a new now, one of change. Let it be for the better. In unity with our diaspora and expats globally. Good day. I am Queen Sheba III, the Queen of Sheba, head of the Nubia Sheba African Kingdoms Federation of the South. I am most honored to be the Vice President for Africa of the Arab African Council for Integration and Development. I sit on the Intergovernmental World Parliament, also representing Africa, and as well on the World Peace Committee. Yes, representing Africa. My portfolios includes the Middle East, because Middle East, Africa, and the Americas are part and parcel of my family community and ancestry that migrated to the Americas. So we can say Middle East, Africa, and the Iberian Peninsula. I just finished a message for Lebanon, an integral part of our history in so many ways. And I thought, well, I cannot complete on Lebanon without speaking as well on our beautiful Africa, the pearl of the throne of Sheba. Africa is the cradle of all nations. Africa is so special. You're the mother cradle, the head, and not the tail. Africa has been blessed with all possible resources. No other nation was and is as blessed as Africa. The genius, the artistry, the intellectual capacity, and the creativity and absolute magnificence of our history and culture is what defines Africa. I hear very often now the term diaspora. I see a difference, and I do separate it. I separate it for a purpose, because in our history, in our thinking, in the culture, within Africa, And I must say Africa and the Middle East. I do not separate the two because it's actually one. It's one. Has always been. And that history and a lot of the histories are so entwined and so much the same. One of the things is our identity, our name, our features, our bloodlines, our families. Africa's history is the world's history. The world's history is Africa's history. Africa is the cradle of all nations. Therefore, it's the mother of creation and the mother of the nations. We are taught respect for our elders, and the elders impart the respect for their generations. In our old history, the 9th generations of 9 nature, Noah, forms the lines of Cush, the lines of Ham, the lines of Narama, some call Nimrod. Our old history is Naama. And the birth lines of the thrones from the southern Arabias, the continent of Africa, and into Asia. So the South. We are now in a very particular time in history that is so surreal to me because I expected it. In fact, I was at times very much like, okay, I have seen so much that must become since childhood. So if it's not going to be in this my lifetime, then something must be very wrong, because then I'm Sheba maybe too early here, because I have seen a lot. I speak a lot. And I spoke a lot about these things I saw, these things ahead, that the world must prepare for, that Africa must prepare for, that we must prepare for by changing the paths and changing the way and changing self. We're now entering a new era. In fact, I stand corrected. We are in a new era. It's formally called the Fourth Digital Revolution era. One of the Internet of Things. The preparation for this new era was already started, I think, by end of 2017, beginning of 2018 at least, and it has been announced, the fourth digital era, but very often we overlook a lot of things being said and we do not always pay attention to it. The fourth digital era, or the transition into this new era, coincides with so much of 2020 and with this pandemic. You know, We can, as I earlier said in the recording I did just prior to this, we can jump high, jump low, and do somersaults and these flips that with my best effort I cannot do, at least not anymore. But we're not going to change what time the sun rises and what time the sun sets. We can change us. We can change the things we do and how we do it. We are going into a new transition of a new time. It's interesting and it's important, but at the same time, this crisis, this coronavirus, has caused a catastrophe in the entrance of that. But yet, I think we need to separate the two and stop the global confusion. I am not going to speak about the things that is already being dealt with. No. It's all over social media and the news or whatever, it's being done. I prefer to address Grandmama, or on behalf of Grandmama Africa, as the Mother Throne of Thrones. I prefer to address the people and the nations from Africa. We are going through a crisis, and a crisis that needs the collective efforts of us all. A crisis and a transition that have caused the world as we know it literally to stop whilst in stopping to the new era time. Many people are afraid because they do not know what tomorrow brings. First of all, I say, fear not. Once you're afraid, you freeze. Once you freeze, you stagnate. We are going through a period in history that was in many ways one to become. The world is advancing, the world is changing. The world is getting in many ways too big for its shoes. People are complaining that they've lost their freedom. As I've said before, I rarely go out. I'm either driving from the castle to the airport, and even if I have to travel and stay over at the airport, I really don't. I stay in the airport, and then I get on the plane, off the plane, and wherever I have to go to, and it could be weeks or months before I step out. So for me, it does make a difference. I am alone getting my work done, literally. Of course, we have the staff around, but I like my solitaire. I can work. My focus is this earth, and its special and central focus, Africa. Africa, this may be the most important time in our history, because we have the time to change the course of history. We have the time to change and the opportunity, the way we go forward. We have the time to stop and take note where we are now and where we have to go. This new era means that a lot of the work, if not all of the work, but quite a lot, is going to be digital. Therefore, it is very important for us to see in which direction we educate our children. We have to see now so many are at home. Jobs are gone for some, not all. There are job cuts and a catastrophe for business owners who employ our communities of people. And the communities of people, oftentimes employing other people, can be domestic workers, it could be gardeners, it could be their school children, teachers in the private schools. There's very often a downline, the hairdressers doing the hair, the nail people doing the nails, the restaurants selling food, the shopkeepers and their groceries, everyone are affected. We can scream, or we can realize the importance of coming together as a collective and supporting all of the initiatives of the respective governments to make a difference and help them make the difference. Because the faster the difference is made, the faster the norms and this new reality of this new era we can integrate and we can face. Focus on that. Focus on that what is truth. Focus in taking this time to appreciating each other, to learning each other, getting to know our children again, getting to know ourselves again, getting to sit and take the time and evaluate where we are, where we want to go. Is it? Evaluate as a collective, is this where we want Africa to be? What do we want? And do it. Africa has the greatest treasure chest on this earth. It is a treasure in itself. It is time that we sit at this time and we think. We reevaluate where we are. We reevaluate, we have to evaluate our values itself. And on what scale do we weight which? The scale of lifting the African people or the scale of the compromise? And in this new time, in this new now, we must decide for survival in that change, for taking responsibility as Africans, for taking responsibilities as those Africans that are of the cradle of all nations, the grandparents of humanity, where humanity should be going for wisdom, where we should be preparing to see how do we, as the caretakers of the global Inheritance. How do we manage our resources? What do we do with our resources? Have we used the resources and put it indeed on the sand next to the water so it goes out? Or tucked it away in hope, oh, we can look at it, it's right there, tuck it back? Or was the resources used to make Africa the most advanced, the most special, the most beautiful, but most important, the most relevant in seeing to the eradication of poverty, not just in Africa, but on a global scale as the planetary treasury of natural inheritance, as the bird cradle. I see this time where the skies are clear and the air is smelling beautifully, when the animals feel free and the grandparents are having all of their children somewhere away from them for safety in some families, not all. It is sad. And where we have families that are together all under the same roof at the same time, probably in generations, because we are too busy. Everyone is on the phone. Everyone have different responsibilities. This time has given us the opportunity to spend time with our families. This time should give us the opportunity to honor and respect all life forces and all life sources, and most of all to respect the life of Africa, because we're now in a crisis and there are Africans that are hungry. We have the best lands in nature. We have farms. We have farmers. We have production. We have potential. We have possibilities. But we have no stocks for rainy days. We have been taught in our history. We are the old lines of Nubia, Egypt. We stock food for at least 7 years for the nation in times of crisis. We need to reevaluate how we do. And we need to see that every African country that must become one collective Africa in the policies that we implement, in what we do and how we do it, do change. We must see that at the first of the season of every crop, that we take some mandatory and we see it's put aside and stored. We must. We have climate change. We have so many different changes ahead. Food and water security should be top of our priorities. Food and water. We must see that the resources of Africa, for the love of God, now works for Africa now more than ever. And do it. We must see that we use the technology of now, we use it and we expand it to expand in all fields of agriculture, every sector of agriculture that we can, in every inch of arable land that we can use. and grow food. And we must see first and foremost that the food feeds the people here in Africa that must get up the next day and go plant again because they need the strength and they need the energy and they need the oil. And then we must see that we have enough to give to the rest of the world, to seed to the rest of the world. But growing the food and shipping it out of Africa while there's hunger in Africa is unforgivable. Unforgivable. Hypocrisy. An abomination. Not because I, Sheba, the queen of the south, said so. But because the provider of all will not smile at such. We need to change our course. Africa is head, not tail. This transition must be the time of internal and Pan-African deliberation to change our course for the better. We do not have hundreds of years the time to do it. We have a very short time to get it done, to change the course we are on for the better, for survival. We have a short time to get it done because with climate changes and global changes, at some point in time, the population of Africa will expand with those coming into Africa of that cradle because of the effect of the weather wherever they are. Africa is an adult, and Africa is not an orphan. We must respect our history. We must respect our heritage. And a part of that history and a part of that heritage, in fact, the most important part are the kingdoms of Africa. Do not be mistaken of the relevance of that. Whichever of the faith one may be, whichever of the thinking one may be, the institution, not me, not by elections, not by man, that was put in place, was not put in place by any that walk in this time or in our generation. It was put in place since the books of Genesis, and the institution put in place by the Almighty, and that same that will rise as the collective house and throne of the kingdoms. Who is going to say to all ahead, well, we decided the kingdoms have no relevance and no value? Seriously? A virus have us all inside. I wouldn't like to think or even want to imagine what the creator of creators and creation itself can do with that error. Equally so, the kingdoms, I must give some responsibility, because somewhere we got lost in that was inconsequential, instead of seeing the responsibilities of the balance, the nurturing, and the spiritual compass of the nations and the guides. Granted, Africa has suffered a lot, but all of that was a part of our written history to come, and it became just as now. Right now, our focus needs to be see to Africa. And those who have, let us share with those who do not. So here after the crisis, we have a coming together with a shared experience, whether big or strong, whatever the color or shade, whatever the area you're living in. We are going through this together. We should stand up from this together. We must build Africa from this together. We must support the governance and the government at this time more than ever. Some we like, some we do not like. Well, say, okay, we need to change, and we need you to change with us. We need to stop the corruption. We need to stop the corrupt practices. We need to elevate the ones who are doing fantastic things. Elevate them. Don't put all in one basket. Elevate. And those that you put in the basket, sit and talk to them. Hey, my brother, my sister, my son, my daughter. We need to change the course. Because one day in the court of a great court, we will sit and we must answer. And if we think we have 1,000 years away or 2,000 years away, no, we do not. This is the time. This is the now to change the path we are on. Without fear, without favor, but to do the right thing for the right reason. To be the one asking, what can I do for you? And helping our descendant nations and children. It's the time to get back in the seat of responsibility as the mother cradle of the nations. We, you, us, Africa. To understand and embrace the communities that are an integral part. It is Africa and it's the Middle East. It's one. Let us make a change. And it starts by seeing that we get our agriculture now back on track. The most important is the agriculture, the food, for the food security. And we start seeing to the food security. The waters, the rivers, the water security. I don't know at times which is more important right now, the food or the water, because it's going to be so critical just around the corner there yonder. Let us make the changes. Let us work good. Let us unite with the ones that respect the integrity of Africa. All of you kingdoms, we have so much wealth as thrones. We have so much lands of thrones. This is not the time for this is me or this is this one and that is that one. No. This is time that we take the collective value of the all, because when you leave this planet, you would leave it there. And when you came to this planet, you met it there. And before it was from this one or that one, it was of the kingdoms of the ancient lines, first and foremost. It was of Solomon. It was of the lines before. It was of the Messiah. It was, we can keep going back. It was from the all of the kings, the kings. We can now cut it up and chop it up in all of these different pieces and assume this one owns that and this one owns that. Really? Really? What is the value of it if there's no one to enjoy it? We need to change our mindsets, and we need to change it now. And an important country to get started on that is all of the countries, but especially South Africa. Because with the climate change and all that is ahead, the South will be critical for the security of the rest of Africa. Remember my words. We need to stop anything dividing us or causing a division. We need to put all of the effort on a new tomorrow and change it. We need to go away from the fear and the propaganda of the fears and deal with it. We need to feed the hungry and feed them now. Yes, the government may have the resources for it or they may not, but in the community, within the people, there are many that do have the resources. Therefore, the responsibility to stand up and now make the difference. Forget the past. Think future. Because if we are thinking only of the present, we would lose the future. So you who have resources, you who have your shop full of food, I'm quite sure the collective nation, governments, the UN, the African Union, will come together and see to some solution for what you have to do to change and save lives. But do it. You that have the hundreds of billions, currencies are going to change. Help the country. The wealth of the nation, the wealth we have on the ground, is a trillion times whatever anyone has. And if we can come together now, if we can forget all the barriers, if we can forget all the borders, if we forget all the divisions and the hypocrisy, we will fulfill well our responsibilities and what we will put here as the mothers and fathers of creation to do. Thank you.